Hey friends, this is Michaela here at Heartscape Studio. We are a wellness community practicing the system of Reiki from the intersection of self-reflection, spiritual practice, and social action. I hope you all are well. I hope you are treating yourselves good today and those that you love, and that you feel connected with the inner guidance system that helps you to understand the next right thing to do during these challenging and strange times. And it's that inner guidance system, our intuition, that I wanted to jump on and talk with you a bit about today. And we'll be continuing to share about in videos here and there because it's a topic that I've been really fascinated by for about 8 years. I've been just really intrigued by the phenomenon of our intuition and the ways that it works in our life in ways that are both mystical and also incredibly pragmatic in the way that it helps us to guide our path and to understand what to do on a given day, how to respond to the situations that come up in our life. And that fascination started for me during a time in my life about 8 years ago when I came to the realization that I'd actually lost touch with my intuition. The circumstances in my life had brought me to a point where I felt like I had lost it, or at least I'd lost my conscious connection and my conscious understanding and relationship with my intuition. And that started me on a path of consciously rebuilding that sense and that capacity in my life. And because I've been so interested with it, I talk with people about intuition a lot. It's one of the topics that we teach about and explore here at Heartscapes. And I've noticed kind of a pattern that is present for a lot of people when they start to think about what their relationship is with intuition. And it's a pattern that is really familiar to me because it mirrors my experience as well. So I wanted to just talk about it a little bit. And that pattern is first a recognition and an understanding that the intuition is important. It's something that just about everybody I talk to and ask about agrees and can identify and readily believes that it's important to have a good sense of our intuition, a good connection with it, and to be able to understand how it talks with us. To be able to distinguish the voice of our intuition from other voices that we might have, like habitual patterns or trauma responses or other impulses that we might have. So people generally believe that the intuition is important. Secondly, most people that I've talked to have some sense that according to their own judge of things, a sense that they are not as connected to their intuition as they would like to be. Perhaps for many people, actually, there's a sense of disconnection, a sense of I have no idea how to listen to my intuition. I'm not even sure, when it's present, when it's not. And I certainly don't know how to consciously call it forward when I want it and need it. Thirdly, there is a desire to build that relationship, a curiosity that that's even possible. For many people, it just never, occurs to us necessarily that that's something we can consciously build. So after kind of hearing that pattern over and over again, I got really interested in developing a body of work around this. And so that's what I'm really in the experiment of these days. And I wanted to just, start by sharing some practices and some perspectives to start getting more feedback from folks. I'd love to hear other people's experiences with their intuition. Again, my experience with kind of consciously working with intuition really came out of a period of my life when I was, well, honestly, it was really just the worst time of my life in general. I was several years into just a really difficult situation. It felt miserable. It felt hopeless. It felt like there was no way out of it. And it would be a couple more years after this moment in time that I would feel like I had moved through this difficult time. And, as we often do when we're in a space of kind of misery and difficulty, there's a sense of shame associated with that. And it can be really hard to ask for help. So I went a long time before I reached out and asked for help. But finally I did and found myself in a practitioner studio, very much like mine here, and working with someone who worked with the subconscious and helped to clear away kind of blocks that we had in accessing our higher wisdom and our subconscious and, clearing out what's in the way of us making good decisions. And when I went to my first session, I had an interesting experience. Perhaps you've had an experience like this before. An experience of somebody asking you a question, and consciously you're pretty sure you know what the answer is. But when you go to speak the answer, what comes out of your mouth is something completely different that you had no intention of saying. And it surprises you. And particularly because you realize that it actually was the right answer all along. And so in this first session, she asked me, what's your intention for our time together? And I had an idea of what my intention was, but when I opened my mouth, what came out was, I need to rebuild my intuition. And that really kind of shook me because I didn't actually even realize at that point that I had lost contact with it. And it was really actually scary. It was more frightening than I would have thought to come to that realization. And over time to realize that, what had happened is that my intuition had been speaking to me for years, giving me information about what I needed to do, decisions I needed to make to shift this bad situation that I was in. And I wasn't ready to make those decisions yet. It felt too hard. It felt too outside of comfort zone. I was in that space of, choosing the miserable thing that's familiar rather than choosing something unfamiliar. And so over time, an interesting thing happens when we don't listen and don't respond to our intuition. There's actually two things that happen simultaneously in my experience. Let me know if this feels true or not to you. But first, the kind of normal language that our intuition speaks to us in, which we'll talk a lot more, maybe in another video, maybe a little bit now, about what that language is. It is different for all of us, but it is very specific. That language, that normal language, which is really very sweet and very, this might sound weird, but almost like a friendly language that our intuition speaks to us in. That language starts to soften and go away. In other words, it stops speaking that language to us. And that's what it was that I had realized, was that I was no longer hearing that voice. But at the same time, it begins to speak to us in a much more harsh way, right? It begins to speak to us through what we might describe as illness or disease, discomfort, things that, are really there to shake us out of whatever it is that we're stuck in. It's like it stagnates inside of us, and it's just trying to get us to change, and we're refusing for whatever reason. And so all of that was happening for me. I no longer had access to the sweet voice that accurately could give me information about what was right for me to choose in a given moment. And I was experiencing all sorts of dis-ease and discomfort and illness as a result of internalizing this refusal to act. And it was those experiences that I began to undo slowly over time. And in the process of doing that, I really have come to learn a lot about my own experience with intuition, and then in talking with other people to begin to build a wider understanding of it. And there's a lot of different resources out there that talk about the intuition from a scientific perspective, a spiritual perspective, an emotional perspective, and they're all really fascinating. There's some really interesting commonalities and differences between them. But what I really, love to start with is, what is our actual direct experience with intuition? So I want to invite you into that conversation. I'm going to be posting videos periodically on this topic, and they're going to go in the folder, the category called Intuition Lab. And that's paired with a monthly offering that I'm doing online just as a free offering, a live gathering for about 45 minutes every first Wednesday of the month at 10 a.m. Pacific time. Is when they're running now. We'll see, that might change. It's fall 2020. If you're watching this sometime in the future, it might be at a different time. But at least for now, we're going to be kind of exploring these topics in community, and specifically working with practices that help us to build our sense of our intuition, or that capacity to, feel into what is right for us to do. And learn from that and grow it. So that really, so that those three impulses that I noticed in myself and that I notice in others when I talk about intuition with them, this sense that intuition is important, that it's valuable, it's something that we want active in our life. This overall sense that we are disconnected from it or don't understand it well, don't know the language well, and a desire to build that understanding, that connection, that relationship with the intuition. So I'd love to just close with sharing a short practice here by way of inviting you into this conversation. And I would really love your input and your feedback, and let me know what you experience. But where I have found that we have to start with intuition and with rebuilding or building for the first time our connection with intuition is by consciously turning our attention back into our bodies. Because our intuition fundamentally speaks to us through the body, whether that's through physical sensations like a fluttering of the heart or prickling of the neck or a churning of the gut or fidgeting hands, or even, movements of the mind, spontaneous thoughts, spontaneous insights that come forward, emotions that come up for reasons that we can't readily explain. These are all an interface between the unseen spaces around us and inside of us and the physical translation device that we have as a body. And so in order to build our relationship with that capacity of the intuition, we have to get in the habit of tuning in to our body. And many of us have gotten out of that habit because it's not well reinforced with our culture. And even those of us who have embodiment practices, who do regularly kind of work with coming into the body, can be challenged to do that consciously in a given moment. There are many layers involved with turning into the body, especially when we have had a traumatic experience in our past. There can be challenges associated with that. That's definitely something that we can talk about, something that I work with. But for now, we're going to just do a simple scan of our body, just to practice turning our attention inward. Okay? So over the next few minutes, I'm just going to guide us in a very simple practice of, essentially scanning our body with our attention. Where we place our attention is incredibly important in any kind of energy work and any kind of, working with the body, really honestly with anything. Where we place our attention is just incredibly important. There's a quote I'm trying to remember. Where we place our attention is our destiny. I'll have to look up where that's from. It's very important where we place our attention. So we're going to practice placing our attention in the body and to notice certain things. So I'm going to invite you to just pay attention to certain things, and I'll just kind of let you know now so you can have it in your mind before we go into a bit of a meditation. But I'm going to invite you to notice parts of your body that seem to be speaking to you in some way. And that might be because there's a feeling of discomfort or pain or tightness or looseness, relaxation. Notice the places that feel relaxed and comfortable, the places that maybe feel a little bit tight, uncomfortable. Notice if there's any sensations that you can't explain, that you're not quite sure what they're about. And just hold that with curiosity, not in a sense of trying to fix that. Notice places that you feel really disconnected from, that maybe you don't notice any sensation at all, or feel any curiosity about, or any connection to at all. Notice places that you like. Notice places that you don't like. Notice where you feel most alive in your body and where you don't. So with those in mind, those criteria in mind, I'm going to invite you to just settle yourself in a position that's comfortable and alert. So relaxed, supported. You don't have to be rigid. You want to be relaxed and supple, but also alert, not lying down and sleeping. Sitting upright with your feet on the floor and your knees lower than your belly is a very good starting position to be in. And from here, just take a couple of breaths. Not trying to alter the breath or change it, just simply letting it move in and out of your body. And just invite with each breath that on the exhale, your body relaxed a little bit more. And let the motion of the inhale, the sensation of movement inside, draw your attention inward. Let your attention follow the breath in through the mouth and into the head. And while you're here, begin to move your attention around the space of the head. Just noticing the sensation of your eyes, whether they're open or closed. The sensation of your scalp, the skin. The sensation of your hair touching other parts of your body. And beginning to scan the attention downward from the top of the head through to the jaw. Notice the quality of the jaw. Is it relaxed? Is it gripping? How does that muscle feel? The mouth and the throat. Noticing the sensation of the breath as you rest your attention on the throat. Remembering all the words you have spoken today or the silences that you have kept. Notice how they feel in your throat. Bringing your attention down to the shoulders, the muscles of the upper back, and also the high chest. Noticing the sensations of the muscles here. Noticing how you're holding your shoulders. The feelings in the heart and in the chest. And pausing for one full breath to experience all of the sensations involved with the lungs expanding and contracting. Take another breath this way and see if you can notice that as you inhale, your heartbeat speeds up a little bit. And as you exhale, it slows down. Continuing to sweep the attention down through the arms, to the hands. Notice the sensations of the hands. Do they feel relaxed? Do they want to move? Do they have something they want to express? We're so expressive with our hands. Moving your attention down the chest to the solar plexus and the stomach below. Noticing the sensations in your stomach. Moving the attention down from the stomach and the solar plexus to the middle of the tummy, the belly button area. So many internal organs here, so much going on. Just take a breath or two to notice what's occurring here. Notice what calls your attention. Noticing too the muscles of the back at this level, the mid back, and moving onto the hips. The sensations of the hips. the major joints here. What are they saying right now? The low belly and the intestines inside. Noticing any movement or sensation here. So often our intuition speaks to us through our gut, through our heart, and through our mind, the three brains. Noticing what's occurring in your gut right now. And continuing to move the attention down into your upper legs, the big major muscles of the thighs, the knees. Noticing any sensations in your calf muscles, your shins, down into your ankles and into your feet. And pausing here again at the feet, noticing the sensation of the feet planted on the floor, if that's the position you're in. Feeling the small micro bones of the feet, perhaps moving them a bit. Just noticing. And having paid such close, lovely attention to yourself from head to toe, I invite you to place one hand at your low belly, below the belly button, one hand on your heart. Two essential center points of the intuition. And just take a couple of breaths resting here. And just sit with what you've noticed. And on your next breath, you can open your eyes if they've been closed. Come back into this space. So that was a simple but fairly detailed body scan. I hope it was illuminating, at least at the very least relaxing. If this process, this idea of reconnecting or deepening your connection to your intuition strikes you, if it feels good to you, I really recommend that you do some journaling with the practice that we just did, just free writing anything that stood out to you, anything at all. If it caught your attention, there's a good chance there's a reason, then there's importance. One good structure for doing this is, again, to first just free write everything that you noticed. And then there's a variety of journaling techniques that can work really well for kind of teasing out what those sensations might be there to tell you. You can, for example, have a dialogue with them. Belly, what was that churning? Heart, what was that flutter? Feet, what was that strange sensation when I pressed you against the floor? And again, just using kind of a free writing style. I'd love to hear what that experience is like for you, and any questions that you have down below that'll help me to guide what's interesting to folks to create these videos, and to create a conversation around them. I'll also drop the link for our monthly intuition lab. Again, that's a free offering held over Zoom at this time, fall 2020. We're holding it every first Wednesday from 10 a.m. to 10:45 Pacific time. I'll put the link down below. And I'll also be, sharing these videos around those same time. So thank you for being on this little bit of a journey with me around intuition. I hope you will join us again. And until next time, I am signing off with gratitude and connection, and I will see you next time. Bye.